I've spent over 1100 hours in Killing Floor, over 2000 hours in Killing Floor 2, and now, after over 320 hours in Killing Floor 3, I want to talk about the state of the game as it is now, a year after what I would say was a pretty disastrous launch. To achieve this, we need to start at the beginning so we can really understand what the trajectory has been like since launch to get us to where we are now and take that into consideration. Season 1, Operation Bad Science. So, when the game came out on the 24th of July 2025, there were 6 perks, each with a unique gadget ability, 6 specialists, 4 primary weapons, and a unique sidearm for each perk. Any perk could use any weapon though, multi-tool zip lines, armor lockers, doors, traps, and turrets, 6 other tools that any perk can use, 12 different types of enemies during waves, 3 different bosses, 8 different maps, 2 game modes, a campaign of missions for this operation, 3 difficulties to play on, and at the stronghold, an armory to modify weapons, a firing range, a perk tree of skills for each perk, and more. I feel that they had a decent variety of perks. KF1 also had 6 on launch. They felt more defined though. KF2 had 4 when it launched in early access. I consider this to be launch for it though, as you still had to pay for it, but they were still more defined. Regarding specialists, at this point, characters were tied to certain perks. For example, to play the Commando, you had to be Mr. Foster, the Engineer, Imran, Firebug, Devlin, etc. They had promised that they will remove perk specialist coupling in a forthcoming update not too long after release, but Killing Floor is not a heroes shooter, so it seems odd that they took this approach. You could choose any perk as any character in KF1 or KF2. 4 weapons for each perk at launch matches KF2's early access strategy for perk weapons, along with a unique sidearm for each perk, but I would expect more weapons for each perk from a game being shipped as full release. Also, most of these weapons felt anemic in their use, not having the same punch as KF1 or 2's weapons, leading to many players, including myself to be fair, using the same weapon in the later waves of a match. The multi-tool adds more ways to deal with enemies and ways to move around the level, which is not a bad addition. The other tools all have their own usage as well, great for flexibility. The demolitionist in KF2 could place traps on any doors that they welded though, not having to use a tool for that. The enemies are mostly a fair evolution on what they have become in KF3. The siren in particular though, felt slower than in KF1 and 2, having to rise up before screaming instead of instantly being able to scream when they get into range. The Husk got more attacks and movement capabilities over what it had in KF2, but I can't help but feel that this just made it more annoying to deal with in comparison to the other typical Zeds. The 3 bosses were all varied and could take down an unprepared team, but once you learned their behavior, they seemed easier to deal with than the Patriarch from KF and the initial boss available in KF2's early access, Hans Volta. The map variety seemed decent, the game modes were fine, but an objective game mode like in KF in particular would have been nice. There were the campaign missions though, allowing for a bit of objective gameplay, but they would not be tracked by the rest of your match team or party, so not the same as objective game modes from KF1 or 2. I was hoping that they would have 4 difficulties, like in KF2, so it seemed odd that they left out the suicidal difficulty. A shame. There was also only 1 game length available, 5 waves plus the boss wave, whilst KF1 and 2 had 4, 7 and 10 waves plus the boss wave, short, medium and long game lengths available. At the armory, one could see each weapon for each perk, and you could modify weapons to become closer to the type of weapon that you're looking for, but with so few weapons and not too much variety between weapon mods, with a modded weapon simply being an overall upgraded version of the base weapon when using the best modifications or any modifications at all. The firing range seemed serviceable, but it would be nice to test against a virtual version of an enemy, Zed or otherwise, to get a better feel for one's weapons. The perk skill trees were quite good overall, with many different combinations available for different situations, but it is a shame that you couldn't change them during a match, like in KF2, or respec them to change how you had spent your proficiency points on perk skills. It is nice how they have a codex though, providing details for each enemy, so that's not bad at all. But before you got access to any of this, shaders, followed by a mandatory tutorial going through the basic parts of the game before you could access the full game. Helpful for new players, but not so much for long-time players of Killing Floor. Getting into the stronghold, Stronghold. Other than the firing range, all other parts of the Stronghold can be accessed via menu options, making one wonder why they even added it to the game. The armory, skills, assignments, codex, and the store, for example, which in particular was available from day one, allowing one to spend real money on premium currency, creds, to purchase certain cosmetics, with the cred packs tending to leave you with leftover creds. E.g., after buying a cred pack to be able to purchase a certain bundle, you would not be able to afford another bundle with your remaining creds. Of course, if you had purchased any of the upgraded versions of the game, you would gain access to some of those cosmetics from launch and have creds to spend in the store. Although this was just for cosmetic items, not affecting gameplay, it left many people to wonder, including myself, why the store was so fleshed out when the rest of the game felt stripped for features, and speaking of which, to even start a match, after choosing the settings, you had to move over to the VTOL area of the Stronghold to initiate the countdown for the match to start. Absolutely fantastic. The match would be found using the game's matchmaking system, which is not bad, but there were no servers that one could simply join, unlike in KF1 or 2, which is a limitation of options to start playing a match. A downgrade, I feel. Getting into a match, before starting, you could choose any loadout options you had available for primary, sidearm, armor, and tool. Then, after you started the match, the core gameplay loop one would expect from Killing Floor was there: survive by killing enemies to get dosh to purchase weapons, and other gear to survive to the boss wave, then beat the boss to win the match. Important notes on the trader pod: the interface to buy and sell weapons and other gear is good, but you cannot change perks during a match using it. You are limited to the one you chose from the start of the match. You also cannot use it to change your perk skills from your perks skill tree during a match, only at the Stronghold, which makes it so you can't alter your perk's specific team role or choose another perk. To add to the usual gameplay loop, you could execute fleshpounds and scrakes. Certain Zeds could also execute you. You would go down when reduced to 0 hit points. Instead of dying, teammates could revive you if playing multiplayer. You had a limited number of syringes to heal yourself. You could not use them to heal teammates. You could close doors. Small and medium Zeds would get stuck behind them, but large Zeds and bosses would break right through. However, you could not weld doors, reducing the ability to control flows of enemies. And you could collect resources to use for weapon modifications from the environment and enemies. On top of this, you also had a gadget ability, unique to each perk, an ultimate ability in other words. Although executions are useful, I wouldn't have understood why they were added. Being revived or reviving teammates makes the game more accessible, which is fair enough. Having limited syringes makes one have to be more careful in their use, but there are ways to restock them during a wave, so a rechargeable one that you could also use on teammates makes more sense, like in KF1 or KF2. Collecting resources for weapon modifications at the armory is fine. As cool as the gadget abilities are, I couldn't understand why they were added, perhaps for an even greater cool factor or even more accessibility when everything else fails. For movement, as well as being able to sprint, one could dash and slide, along with being able to mount certain ledges and climb ladders. The movement system seemed decent, but there were some issues. It was hard to tell what obstacles you could actually mount, or even how to mount them. Plus, even if they were mountable, it wouldn't have always worked. Not even ladders always worked correctly all the time. It certainly made it much easier to get out of trouble when you misjudged a situation though, compared to KF1 or 2, which were far more punishing for the same situations, which has lowered the stakes in KF3. You could also issue voice commands and ping areas/enemies, useful for tactical/strategic gameplay, but there was no text chat available, VoIP only, and not all players would have a microphone, limiting their team communication abilities. The Meet 2.0 system was great though, expanding on KF2's Meet system, allowing for even more visceral combat. To alter wave patterns, wave mutations were added that would change the structure of the wave, such as having more crawlers, and other changes, such as increased spawn intensity and specialist/Z damage bonuses. This was also a nice addition, providing greater variety during a match. Final praise here has got to be the music. It's good. For example, Unfortunately, the game was poorly optimized and low frame rates were common, even for those with decent hardware, along with other server issues, which also caused the game to feel not responsive at times and made it harder to predict enemy movement/attack patterns. Since launch, it seems that the cons were more greatly felt than the pros, unfortunately causing this downward trend of concurrent players through to November, which might have led to fewer players being able to give direct feedback on future content. Of course, Tripwire Interactive really should have tried harder to maintain their player count for the game. There were a lot of odd design choices, but the greatest issues were that the game felt stripped for features, with the developers focusing on making monetization options more apparent and a bit too easy, if anything, with all the new escape and survival aspects added into the game. On top of this, anemic feeling weapons, not being able to use syringes on teammates, and not being able to weld doors made the game feel much less like Killing Floor. Following launch, after a few hot fixes, mostly for bugs, game balance, and server issues, they had also given all players 500 creds to thank people for their patience, though about 3 weeks after launch on the 15th of August 2025, which is better than nothing. The first mid-season update came 3 months after launch, on the 23rd of October 2025, the Rearmament update. This brought in many performance optimizations and balance changes to the game, such as reducing the ammo cost of the ninja's Yumi, making it far more usable. Most notably though, it brought in the promised perk and specialist decoupling, so you could now use any perk as any specialist, along with 3 new weapons and mods, plus Z bump physics, and a few new cosmetics. These balance changes across the game seem to be fair overall. I especially liked the updated medic dart homing behavior. The optimizations were more than welcome, and it is good that they followed through with their promise on perk specialist decoupling. Regarding the new weapons, the Strike Dual Defender could be turned into a pseudo Doomstick from KF2, being able to unload all 4 barrels at once, to take down packs of small enemies, and for consistent damage to large Zeds and bosses. The M14 EBR can be similar to the M14 from KF1 and 2, a nice callback and a decent weapon, with the full auto receiver allowing for powerful shots in quick succession. And lastly, the MKR350 seems most similar to the AK-12 from KF2. It has its special dual mag mod, allowing for faster reloading, its multi-round burst fire mode mod, allowing for up to a 3-round burst when shooting, if upgraded enough, and a green dot sight mod, a new sight, with this weapon seeming decent, but not as good overall as the other two. The Z bump physics is an interesting mechanic, as it allowed one to knock Zeds out of the way to escape, or crash into Zeds on the attack. This would not have worked on large Zeds, which is fair enough, and although this mechanic made sense on a physical level, if anything, it simply allowed for another way to more easily escape from Zed hordes, reducing the stakes once again. I felt that the new cosmetics were nothing special, especially as most of them had to be purchased from the store. You were only given a few when logging in after the update, while pre-update hotfixes, along with the Rearmament update itself, fixed perk specialist coupling. This was decoupled. Certain server issues, such as the Hydra 5 error, along with performance optimizations and matchmaking improvements. There were still notable issues in the game, such as not being able to type to players in a game in 2025. Let that sink in. This update might have reduced the rate at which concurrent players were dropping, but I can't be sure. Following the Rearmament update, after back-end maintenance and teasers for Season 2, about 5 and a bit weeks after that update, on the 4th of December 2025, came Season 2, Operation Breakout. This update introduced a new enemy, a new weapon and mods, with some of these new mods to help in taking down that new enemy, a new map, a new specialist, a new campaign of 10 missions, new wave mutators, new weekly mutators, new Z executions of the player, a whole load of new cosmetic items, including the 100 supply pass rewards for this season, just like the first season, plus many performance optimizations and balance adjustments. The new enemy was really an old one, the Stalker. As well as having stealth, she had even more acrobatic dexterity and cunning than in KF2. Commandos gained the ability to reveal Stalkers for themselves and the team, with the new weapon mods allowing anyone to reveal them for themselves. Honestly though, as good as the upgrades to her acrobatics and appearance are, she certainly looks more menacing. Stalkers should have been in the game since launch, being a classic Z in the franchise. The new weapon, the KV Recluse, is quite interesting, being a decent medic weapon one could purchase when saving up for the LF85, being able to put out quite a bit of damage in a short time, was able to heal teammates or Zeds, inspired by a real-world weapon, and was able to use the stalker detection mods. It was a good all-around tier 2 medic weapon. Prison was a good all-around map with a nice flow to it, good visual elements, and sensible placements of multi-tool items, trader pods, enemy spawns, and destructible Horsine equipment. It could have used just a touch of performance optimization though. The new specialist is a character from Killing Floor 1 and 2, DJ Scully, having been abducted by Horsine and sent to their cryo prison in Central America, after he made disparaging public statements about the company. I praise them for having the original voice actor for him.
Who let you pass the door?
But I wonder why they had not added him to the base game. Perhaps because the campaign explains how, spoiler alert, Nightfall rescued him, and speaking of which, the campaign has you go through 10 missions to rescue DJ Scully from Horsine. Not a bad campaign, although as you can play as DJ Scully before even starting the campaign, it is jarring to have DJ Scully refer to you, the player, even if you're playing as him. A bit odd to have him rescuing himself. For the new wave mutators, these add more variation to gameplay, such as the Maya minions mutator, replacing cysts and clots with Maya variants. New wave mutators are always welcome in my book. New weekly mutators are also welcome in my book, adding even more variety to gameplay if you want to play that game mode. As for new Z executions of the player, while it makes sense that all Zs should be able to execute a downed player, they can be saved if another player eliminates or interrupts that Z. It makes it harder for that player to be saved. All nearby Zs will want to execute a downed player, which adds to the cool factor but lowers accessibility. The cosmetic items are alright, they are there if you want them, offering a decent level of customizability. The supply pass items being the most accessible, but none of these items are going to blow you away. The performance optimizations were appreciated, always nice to see better performance overall, and the balance adjustments seemed decent, helping to make more weapons viable, but not going far enough. Bug fixes are also quite welcome, in a game that has many bugs I'm sure. All in all, as fair or even as good as the additions are, it has unfortunately not changed that much about the core problems the game has, such as no text chat still, not allowing a core communication method for PC players, minor balance changes to weapons, not addressing the dominance of certain weapons, and an underwhelming campaign, not selling the story behind Killing Floor 3 as much as it could, making one less inclined to keep track of a certain character's plans. Following on from Season 2, after a hotfix, the developers revealing the Year 2 roadmap and teasers for Season 3, about 3 months after Season 2, comes Season 3 Operation Deep Freeze on the 12th of March 2026. This includes a new campaign of missions, a new specialist, a new map, a new game length, a new boss, a new enemy, 2 new weapons, dual wielding for 2 existing sidearms, new mutation waves, new weekly mutators, a comic book viewer, Season 3 campaign/milestone rewards, new daily, weekly milestones and achievements, new quality of life improvements, performance improvements, balance adjustments, bug fixes, polish and system improvements, the Season 3 supply pass, and new store items. The hotfix, just a week after Season 2, simply corrected a few stability issues on PC. The Year 2 roadmap was good to see, giving an impression on the updates to come over the remainder of 2026, and when the campaign of missions goes into further detail about how a certain character is planning to take over. Only 7 missions this time though, but I feel that people, including myself, would only want to complete these missions for perk and supply pass experience, plus cosmetics and for completeness sake. The new map has a good layout, with object positions in fair locations, including a new trap, but the weather conditions outside can hinder visibility in the later waves, and this also leads to an overall drop in performance, a black mark against an otherwise decent map. The new game length matches up with a length available in Killing Floor 1 and 2, which is nice to see, but another shorter game length or an adjustment of game lengths to fit in a medium game length would better help players choose a match length to suit them, as well as fitting in with Killing Floor 1 and 2's game lengths. The new boss, the Alpha Scavenger, has interesting mechanics, being able to eat the the remains of fallen scavengers to heal and power itself up, plus the ability to shoot toxic ball shots in Phase 2, but simply appears as a larger version of the new enemy. Not too impressive on the appearance front, but moving on to this new enemy, the Scavenger, they are fast, deal high damage with melee attacks, and can emit a toxic spray to an area around themselves, making them quite a potent enemy. The two new weapons are the Tekkokaji for the ninja, and the M97 trench gun for the firebug. The Tekkokaji is a decent melee weapon, capable of ripping through small and medium Zeds quite easily, even being able to deal good damage to large Zeds, whilst the trench gun is a solid shotgun, and it has the ability to be fired in full auto mode for quick burst damage, and in combination with a certain firebug skill, can be effective throughout the match. These two weapons are a decent addition to the game. Dual wielding for the Commando's Bloodhound P330 and the Engineer's Crate is an alright addition, getting ready for the Gunslinger's dual wield weapons come Season 4. A shame that one has to spend resources on these weapons for a new configuration, instead of being able to simply use two of one's already modded sidearms, and although the developers wanted to give players a taste of dual wielding, perhaps they should have held off until the Season 4 update, as these dual wield sidearms would not add much to the game save for the cool factor of one's good, but why not two at the same time? The new mutation waves are nice though, with not of this world, focusing on Maya enemies, and is one of the ways to fight the Scavenger, so that's good, with the holdout waves introducing an optional objective to defend an area, with rewards including XP, dosh, and crafting materials, including that elusive ichor, which could only be obtained from bosses prior to this, so I wholeheartedly approve of this wave mutator, for an objective with nice rewards to boot. The comic book viewer is a decent addition, only one comic at the moment, but it provides a bit of lore and insight into the characters, specialists, which is not bad. The Season 3 campaign/milestone rewards are alright, for a few season-appropriate cosmetic rewards and player cards. The new daily and weekly objectives are understandable, plus milestones, with achievements being what I prefer. I'm a bit of a completionist, so to say, wanting to obtain all achievements, but I understand that not everyone cares about getting achievements, and would just prefer rewards in-game, which is fair enough. The quality of life improvements are quite interesting though, showing which boss you're fighting immediately after the last wave, to allow players to purchase the best weapons for that boss, and consider the team's plan to take it down, instead of having the boss sprung on you. I approve of this. Bloat mines being automatically cleared after the end of each wave is nice to have, annoying to have hazards carry over into the next wave. Bump mechanic refinements and bash improvements are good to see, especially for the new bayonet attachment. Being able to initiate the countdown for the match without having to walk into the VTOL area is a step in the right direction, but not quite there for solo play. Copying invite codes makes it much easier to invite friends on PC, good to see, along with being able to hide the party code in streamer mode. An AFK detection system is good to see too, to stop inactive players from impacting the party's progression. Player card filter and sorting options are also useful. An expanded ping visibility is good to see too. I always like to see medic dart targeting improvements, and controller dead zone controls will be nice for those using controllers. Performance improvements were good to see, and I felt that they should help with the game's performance overall. It was nice that they were trying to improve this. These were sensible improvements. The balance adjustments seemed to make sense, making the Zeds more challenging enemies, and the weapons more in line with each other. The bug fixes, polish, and system improvements would help resolve certain issues in the game. This was to be expected from this type of game though, so it's good to see that they were continuing to resolve these issues. The Season 3 supply pass, Operation Deep Freeze, had all right rewards, new map appropriate gear, adequate but nothing special, and the store items were all right, plus at least with the 100 creds pack you should not be overspending on creds. But these bundles and a la carte items were really just par for the course. In conclusion on this update, it really felt like Season 2's update, but in a greater quantity. A bit better in quite a few ways, such as trying to address the imbalance of certain weapons, introducing a new enemy, along with a greater version as a boss, and useful quality of life improvements, such as not having to walk to the VTOL area to initiate the countdown down for a match. But in spite of these improvements, the game still felt as though it was missing certain vital pieces, such as still no text chat, a campaign that really should have hyped up what is going to happen in Season 4, and even considering the balance changes, there were still a certain number of meta weapons that any perk can use as if they were the perk that weapon was made for. Following on from Season 3, after some maintenance, hotfixes for stability fixes, and a community survey, about 2 months after Season 3, finally comes the text chat update on the 14th of May 2026. This introduces, you guessed it, text chat for all platforms, performance optimizations, plus bug fixes, polish, and system improvements. Maintenance and hotfixes were to be expected, but a community survey for feedback from the community can help give them an idea of what we want to see in the future. I took part in this. Finally, though, we have text chat in game. It only took them almost a year after launch. What's wrong with that? Perfectly normal for a game released back in 2025. Killing Floor 1 and 2 had this feature on launch, so it's surprising that Killing Floor 3 just got this feature with this update. Disappointing, really. It's good that they continue to provide performance optimizations, plus bug fixes, polish, and system improvements, but this is, of course, what one should expect from a game developer, Tripwire Interactive especially. To conclude on this update, there's text chat now. Great. On to the next update. Following the text chat update, after more back-end maintenance, hotfixes, an intercepted Horzine message, and a teaser for the Onslaught update, about a month after the text chat update comes the Onslaught update on the 16th of June 2026. It includes a new map, plus bug fixes, polish, and system improvements, including quality of life improvements. The back-end maintenance and hotfixes are to be expected, but this intercepted Horzine message is interesting, giving a clue to the whereabouts of Moorcroft. Not a bad piece of lore. Going into the update, the new map is indeed cramped, but there is a route or two to Kite Zeds here, with traps and turrets helping to deal with them. Not a bad arena-type map, which has similar aesthetic components to sewers. The other map in Japan. There is also a back area that you can unlock if you destroy the right Horzine equipment. An interesting addition to this map, which makes it less cramped. It's also expected that they are continuing to implement stability and performance fixes, plus bug fixes, but the quality of life improvements are good, with the tutorial now skippable for new players, plus no ready wait for single players before traveling out of the hub, Stronghold, or entering matchmaking for solo or multiplayer matches respectively, with the ready wait also being skipped for multiplayer games if all players vote to start, which is also good to see, and players respawning in place when changing perks in the hub is also useful if one wants to use the firing range for a perk different from their current one, for example. In conclusion to this update, the map is decent, forcing players to stand and fight more often, with the quality of life improvements also being good to see, but even for a mid-season update, I think I would have preferred a new weapon or two instead of a new cramped map, or even a new enemy, Zed or otherwise, on top of these quality of life improvements. Following the Onslaught update, after more back-end maintenance, including for the next large update, and many teasers for this update, about 5 weeks after the Onslaught update comes Season 4, Operation Shadowhunter, on the 23rd of July 2026. I'll be going through my first impressions of this update, as I have not had time to look at all of it, but it includes a new campaign of missions, a new perk with 6 new weapons and a gadget ability, new weapon mods, a new map, a new boss, a new difficulty, new mutation waves, new weekly mutators, new milestone rewards, new daily, weekly milestones and achievements, great new quality of life improvements, performance improvements, balance adjustments, plus bug fixes, polish, and system improvements. After the necessary back-end maintenance before this update, plus teasers for it, it launched. With the concurrent player counts being much higher, it has been a free weekend for the game though, and first impressions wise, the campaign of missions seems nice so far, with good voice work for the characters.
Nightfall. Your ancestors learned to walk upright so that one day you may kneel before me.
The new perk is from Killing Floor 2, the Gunslinger, but revised in many ways, with great primary weapons, a sidearm, single or dual, with some utility, a very useful grenade, and their gadget, Fatal Focus, allows one to pick off a decent-sized mob of small/medium Zeds, or one or even two large Zeds. Also, using a certain perk skill at level 8 provides a solid metal pang sound when getting headshots. Very satisfying and similar to the Rack 'em Up skill the Gunslinger has in Killing Floor 2. The new map is interesting, with even a few ways for access / to limit the Zed's ways of getting to you. The drill trap on this level is great too, being able to take out many and all types of Zeds if you time it correctly. A good map overall. The new boss is that dastardly character, Moorcroft, and he can put the pain on you in many different ways, with his assortment of attacks, plus a shield, cloaking, and draining to get health back. A mix between Hans and the Patriarch from Killing Floor 2. He also has voice lines and uses Zeds and Maya hordes to aid him during the battle. A challenging foe indeed. Suicidal difficulty is nice to have back between hard and hell on earth. The new mutation waves are interesting, with Maya infestation causing you to have to hunt down 4 tentacles on a trader pod, while explosive situation causes crawlers, gorefasts, and bloats to explode on death unless you get a headshot on them. This adds even more variation to the game, which I approve of. The new weekly mutators look interesting, with Chaos Cascade rolling a random wave mutator each wave, which looks like it will make for a harder match overall. The narrative campaign / milestone rewards seem good. I'm using a few on my weapons. The new daily, weekly, and milestones make sense for the new content, and I like the new achievements, and I have obtained a few of them already. The quality of life improvements are great though, with the crafting material exchange allowing one to exchange resources for what they need if they have too much of one resource. When crafting mods, you can now choose what the tier 3 mod ability will be, much better than having to recycle a mod to re-roll for the mod ability you want over and over again. Both of these in combination have allowed me to quickly put together an arsenal for the Gunslinger. I have heard a few of the updated weapon sounds. They are good. The toggle sprint adjustments are good though. Nice to not have to hold down shift to sprint for an extended period of time. I'm sure being able to join a friend from the main menu is useful. Not leaving ADS when dashing is good too. The new Z voices for some of them are good to hear. The dual rollout for the remaining sidearms is good, especially for the medic pistols. An updated weapon shader is nice. Updated lighting is good. Improved melee hit and parry during high ping network environments is good to see. And the Siren Scream shield is especially nice, showing players that their projectiles are indeed being blocked by it. Performance improvements are nice. The balance adjustments look promising. And lastly, it's good to see more bug fixes, polish, and system improvements, especially adding pre-placed ammo bags to armor lockers. All good fixes. In conclusion to what I've experienced of this update so far, it's looking good. I honestly think it's the Gunslinger's edition carrying this update, but all the other changes factor into it too, especially the crafting material exchange and being able to choose tier 3 mod abilities. This all makes for a great time again, but the question still is, has Killing Floor 3 been fixed all this time later? Well, for me, if I were to have gotten a refund on the game, starting from 0, I would buy it again. It's my kind of game, being a new take on what I enjoy. The movement system is good overall. The crafting system adds variety, and campaigns, season by season, even with issues, have added to the game's story, setting the stage for what may happen further down the line. Ultimately, it's going to be your decision. If you wanted more of exactly what Killing Floor 1 and 2 had to offer, maybe it's not the best option, as it's undoubtedly easier. The theme of many of the maps is not for everyone, and cross-platform play can cause various issues. So, if you're deciding to pick up the game, or maybe you're getting back into it after a while away, this playlist right here has got great boss killing tips for you. Many thanks for watching, goodbye for now.